Show was so amazing, and I hesitant to use the word life affirming, but man, I felt so great during the show. I mean, 4 or 5 songs in, I was like rocking out so hard. I was right in front of the stage, and I was just loving it so much. And I almost felt like overwhelmed with emotion. Like I was gonna almost about to like start bawling or something, and I held it back because I didn't want to be that weirdo in the front row, like just freaking out, losing it in front of. I mean, because I'm not a crier, I don't do that sort of thing. Also, I worried that because they could 100% see me, that they would have thought I was having a medical emergency and might have tried to stop the show and like draw attention to me. So I definitely didn't want that to happen, but. It's me, your buddy Dave, the host of the Dark Stuff channel here on YouTube. Thanks a lot for checking out my latest video. This week, I'm reviewing 2 amazing concerts that happened one day after another. I'm going to tell you all about it. Lots of video, lots of photos. Please stay tuned. So yeah, one of my absolute favorite bands of all time, Superchunk, played in town this week. They played on Thursday night at the Waiting Room, and it's a 2-night stand, okay? So Wednesday night was MDOU MOCTAR along with Rosali, and then Thursday night was Superchunk with a new band from Australia, new to me anyways, called Quivers. I've been waiting for this Superchunk show for an extremely long time because the last time I saw Superchunk was the last time they were in Omaha, which was 2010, and it was at the Omaha Music Festival. This show was so long ago that like Laura Balance was still playing live in the band with them at that time, right? Longtime fans know, of course, that founding member, bass player Laura Balance is still in the band, but she doesn't do the touring anymore. She just plays on the records, and then she lets mostly Jason Narducci do the touring. And I thought he wasn't even going to be there at this show too, because I'd seen some footage of Superchunk in Europe, and they had Betsy Boots from X Hex playing bass, and I thought maybe she was doing the bass now, but no, Jason was back. I guess he just couldn't do those particular shows. And this was my first time seeing Superchunk without John Worster. Superchunk's longtime drummer John Worster quit the band about 1.5 years or so ago, and Laura King has replaced him, and she was awesome. I mean, I'm sorry I don't know her credits or anything, but the idea behind this particular show was that they were celebrating the 30th anniversary of this album, Foolish, from 1994. This is a 2011 sort of reissue CD. My original was in a hardcover or a plastic cover. Considered by many Superchunk fans to be the band's best. Now, I'm not going to spoil it for you. I did a catalog ranking of Superchunk a couple of years ago. Where did it fit in that one? Well, was it my number 1? I don't know. I'm not trying to be just weird about it, but I don't want to give it away. I would prefer you watch the video. I will say it's in my top 3, which means it could be number 1, could be number 2, whatever. Anyways. Too deep into the review of Superchunk, I do want to acknowledge the opening act, Quivers. They were great. They're from Melbourne, Australia, and their newest album is called Oyster Cuts. They record for Merge Records. That's the label that Mac and Laura from Superchunk founded. When they came on initially, I was kind of hearing a little bit of that band Real Estate, you know, and as it went on, I could hear like a strong REM influence. It was just very jangly pop. Really, really good stuff. After the show, I went up and talked to one of the guys, and I was just, I don't know, I tried to be all cool and acknowledge all this Australian music I'd been listening to since they're from Australia. And I pointed out, like, I was like, oh yeah, the Chats and the Beths, and then I said Always. And he goes, well, they're Canadian. And I was like, motherfucker. Okay. So he did say, well, they sound Australian. So he threw me a bone on that one. But I forgot Julia Jacqueline was another one. I just blanked on all these bands, of course. But yeah, that's the first thing they want to hear. Hey, you're Australian. Do you know all these other Australian bands? But man, Australia is really peaking right now with some really, really great music. And I would throw Quivers in that stack, in that list. I've been looking forward to this Superchunk show for a really long time. I mean, they are one of my favorite bands, and as I said, I hadn't seen the band since 2010. Mac did a solo show in 2016. He was the opener for Destroyer in Reverb, so I saw that. I got to meet him real briefly at that show, but it's been since 2016. In a real funk lately, just down and depressed about things, just life in general, you know. I mean, nothing super particular, but I was really looking forward to this show and hoping it was going to be good, and it did not fail to deliver. I mean, this show was so amazing, and I hesitant to use the word life affirming, but man, I felt so great during the show. I mean, 4 or 5 songs in, I was like rocking out so hard. I was right in front of the stage, and I was just loving it so much. And I almost felt like overwhelmed with emotion. Like I was gonna almost about to like start bawling or something, and I held it back because I didn't want to be that weirdo in the front row, like just freaking out, losing it in front of. I mean, because I'm not a crier. I don't do that sort of thing. Also, I worried that because they could 100% see me, that they would have thought I was having a medical emergency and might have tried to stop the show and like draw attention to me. So I definitely didn't want that to happen. But wow, I got really overwhelmed, and it wasn't because I was sad. It was because it was like a depression breakthrough. I texted a friend of mine after, and I was like, that show is like an antidepressant. Like, I feel so much better now. I was just loving it. I was singing out loud. I was just, I mean, you know, everything. It was just such a fucking amazing night. So they were doing Foolish at 30, you know, celebrating the Foolish album at 30 years old. But that didn't mean they were going to do the album in its entirety. You know, I think that's what a lot of groups do when they're celebrating a classic album, is they do it all the way through. In this case, I mean, there's like 12 songs on Foolish, and I think they probably did like 7 or 8 of them. So they did most of Foolish, more than they would have done if they were just out on tour normally. But you also still had tracks like My Gap Feels Weird, Detroit Has a Skyline, Me and You, Jackie Matu. They played Slack Motherfucker, of course. So they did throw in other songs besides the songs on Foolish. So for the encore, the members of Quivers got up on stage with Superchunk and were playing a song, and they said it's on our new 7-inch, split 7-inch that we have back at the merch table. So I went and bought that. This Superchunk, and then you got Quivers on the back. And then while I was there, I went and picked up 2 other singles that I didn't actually have copies of from before from Superchunk. Here's the Endless Summer single that I bought off them. And then this one, For Everybody Dies. So I would say I think the band had a great time in Omaha. Max said it was their first time in 25 years. It was only 14 years, but his Instagram, if you go back and look at it, you'll see he posted a bunch of pictures from Omaha, and he also posted pictures of him, selfies with Connor Oberst, who was in the crowd, Tim Kasher from Cursive, and Simon Joyner was also there. So man, what a fun night. Fucking Superchunk still rules. Naturally, I have to talk about this MDOU MOCTAR show, which was the night before. This was 2 nights of a lot of rock. My ears took a huge beating on this this couple of days. I needed a 3rd day to recover. I mean, the next day I was toast. So for those unfamiliar, MDOU MOCTAR is both the name of the group and the main guy in the band. He is from Niger in West Africa, although there's a lot of other cultural things that are going on with him and the kind of music that they play, but suffice to say, I've never heard anything like it. It is amazing guitar music, but again, unlike anything, and I don't know what language they sing in, which usually would bother me that it's not in English, because I'm like a typical American. If it's not in my language, I don't want, but I really enjoyed it. And again, I don't know what the hell they're singing about or what language they're singing in, but it draws you in so much. His newest album is called Funeral for Justice, came out earlier in the year. They got a new EP called Tears of Injustice, which I'm thinking is like a companion piece to that. This was the 2nd time I'd seen MDOU MOCTAR. I did see them a few years ago opening for Parquet Courts. That was an incredible show, so I was like very excited about seeing them again in a dedicated show where they were going to headline. Opening the show was Rosali. Now, I've seen Rosali one other time, and that was at the Girl Camp Festival. I did a video on that. Of course, that'll be linked below. Picked up this Rosali shirt. Okay, purchased that from Rosali herself. We got to chat a couple of minutes. Now, on that shirt, you'll see David Nance, because he's one of the members of Rosali's band. He wasn't there. He's not touring the rest of the year. I addressed that in a previous video. His replacement is actually the bass player from Mode Sound, David Nance's band, because he plays guitar in that band, and it's a long story. Rosali was great, mainly because she's awesome, and Jim Schroeder, the lead guitar player, is awesome. And last time I said, it was like seeing them live is like seeing Amy Mann fronting Crazy Horse. And I did throw that out to David Nance when I talked to him about it. And he sort of said, like, I don't know, she's not that into the Amy Mann comparison. I don't know. I think it's a good comparison. I also said Linda Ronstadt, but I think Amy Mann's more appropriate, with just a more raw, sound behind her. I did mention that to her, and she didn't say she wasn't happy with that. So I don't know. Maybe I got some bum information. I'm not sure. So I really love the Rosali set because now I'm much more familiar with her music, because when I saw them last summer, I only knew a little bit of the new album on Merge, but I've subsequently got the whole album and got her previous album. So now I was much more familiar with the songs. So when she was playing like My Kind or Rewind or whatever, like I knew the bulk of the songs. Great set. Again, she's pretty incredible. MDOU MOCTAR came up. Holy smokes, folks. I was not prepared for this. I honestly wasn't. Like, I knew what I was going to get into a little bit, okay, because I had seen them once before. But just the way they can walk on and within like a minute, they're just, you're entranced in what they're doing. They can build up this like rhythmic thing. I was kind of in front of the bass player, so I was watching him a lot. But MDOU was a little bit too, like as I'm looking at the stage to my right, he was pretty close. The guitar playing is just phenomenal. I mean, phenomenal. And so he plays left-handed, but he's doing all this intricate guitar stuff, and he's playing with his fingers. Like, I zoomed in on the camera because I wanted to see how can he play like that with just his fingers. I mean, I'm not even a guitar player, but like I'm just like blown away just by that style, let alone what he's actually playing. As is often the case, it's very, very loud right up front. I choose not to wear earplugs. That's my choice. Don't at me. But you know what? There was another guy up in the front row who made that same choice, and I think MDOU noticed him because you'll see in this video, he like walks back, grabs a package of earplugs, I'm sorry, and then hands it to the guy in the front. I'm sure that guy appreciated it a lot. So yeah, if the idea of like West African desert indie rock or whatever kind of sounds weird to you, and you're like, I don't know. Dude, if you appreciate great guitar playing, you have to see this band perform. And they tour all the time, literally, constantly. I think it's maybe they don't want to go home and they just want to keep touring constantly. But, God, it was good. All right, I'm going to leave you guys here. Another couple of clips or something to wrap up the show. Phenomenal 2 nights. A couple more shows coming up soon. I'll be back with you then. Take care. Bye-bye.
So, you have a MySpace page or something?